Okay, we're back. How much time did it kill? Only a minute. I gotta cut a minute off the first of this episode. Anyway, welcome to Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures, episode 354. As you see me speaking with no sound, because OBS for some reason absolutely hates me and it switches my mic, we're talking about difficult terrain. The short and long of it was that it is that time of year where the weather's getting warmer and we are starting to plan getting into some of that deep wood stuff. So difficult terrain. Like I was saying, it's going to be some stuff that is common sense, which we always try to cover because common sense isn't common anymore. It's only acquired knowledge, and hopefully we get a few people out there that acquire the knowledge. And then we're going to talk about a few things that potentially people forget about or maybe don't think about as readily when it comes to difficult terrain. And hopefully that'll shed some light for some other people out there. But like I said, main point of this is it's time to get in the woods, so let's get you thinking about getting into the woods. And difficult terrain is kind of one of the biggest obstacles that we're going to face the second you get out of the car or out of the truck or walk into the woods line. You know what I mean? Because if it's not difficult, I don't know, it's not really fun. What do you think, Ben?
Well, I mean, the more difficult it is, the harder it is to get to, the fewer people you're going to find back there. So that is part of the hiking, the backwoods camping, is going somewhere that everyone didn't go or everyone's not going to go. So there's a few tools that are kind of invaluable to this, and a few techniques that I think are very useful when you're trying to navigate terrain that is probably, not stroller ready. It's not a groomed path, but you're dealing with obstacles and how you can traverse those safely and efficiently.
And I guess that's a good point. When I say difficult terrain, keeping in mind that's a scale. You know what I mean? It can be anything from it's moderately difficult to you need to be an experienced hiker with proper gear to get through it. And I mean, it's going to that sliding scale may be different depending on the individual as well. Ben probably doesn't find some things that I find difficult because Ben has at least 8 inches on each one of his inseams compared to me. Like, he's got longer legs. It's a little easier to walk over things. I'm a little shorter in stature. I have to usually give like 1.5 strides to one of Ben's. And that's the first thing I wanted to talk about that a lot of people don't think about is what is easy for one may not be easy for all, or what is difficult for one may not be difficult for all. As Ben's significant other there has mentioned several times, not everybody's Ben. You know what I mean? And not everybody is you out there listening to us out there. And we do have Eric and Andrew join us there. Thanks, gents, for joining in. Sorry about the audio problems there at the start. Wouldn't be one of our shows if we didn't have a little issue. But yeah, not everybody is going to be capable of what you are. And what you find difficult, somebody else may not or may find impossible. And there's a couple ways we can look at this and try and figure out where we sit. So the first thing that you got to take into mind is literally that, your stride. Where are you going? How difficult is it to lift your legs over potential obstacles? And what's a potential obstacle? That could be as simple as tree roots or a downed tree, rocks, or right now in the woods, there's still pockets of deep snow. And if you're traversing through this stuff, the first point I wanted to make, besides, what you're walking over, is the actual extra effort that goes into traversing difficult terrain. So when you are thinking of how long it's going to take you, how much water you're going to consume, how many breaks you are going to take, the clothes you are going to wear, all of these things have to go with a grain of salt with the terrain you are going to traverse, which we have talked about in past episodes. But once again, just kind of highlighting it here today. Climbing straight up a slope is going to take you roughly, well, depending on how steep the slope is, and there's formulas for this, but you know what I mean? If it's a good grade, it's going to take you significantly longer than just walking on the flat or on the downhill. But downhills come with its own problems too. Yes, you may be able to walk it faster, but you got a lot other things happening. You got gravity helping and working against you. If you do stumble, it could be potentially worse than if you were on flat ground or maybe going up a slight incline, because now you have that pack and gravity pushing you down. What might have just been a little oopsie may now be a rolled ankle. These are all things that we don't readily think about when we're like, hey, I'm leaving for the woods for the weekend. And maybe we should think about them a little more. And I've rambled quite a bit here, Ben, so why don't you jump in for a couple minutes? That way it's just not me screaming into a mic.
Well, I mean, you got some good points there. Going downhill, one of the problems I've found is your legs can really take a beating because you're basically stopping your fall every step. Climbing, you're pushing yourself up. So that that has an effect. But if it's difficult terrain, you're probably not working over even and even tight terrain. And by that I mean loose items that you have to avoid and or navigate over. And there's a huge thing with this is your own individual sense of balance. So as you're walking through more rugged terrain, you're going to be forced to step on things that aren't necessarily as stable. And if you don't have a good sense of balance and a good sense of touch in your feet, you can easily twist an ankle, slip off something, or fall. And you'll notice this with people who are sure-footed. They'll hop up or down a hill or down a side of a mountain or across a river, and they'll jump on rocks that are slippery and tippy, and it doesn't seem to bother them. They just can do it. And then somebody who's more nervous will like feel the rock move, and then they overcompensate. Next thing you know, they're face down into a river or into the side of a mountain. And so this sense of balance and sure-footedness, it comes with experience, practice, and actually good fitness. Now, I mean, it's something to really keep in mind. If you don't have those three things, that can become a lot more difficult. But there are tools you can use to enhance that. And this is one of the things I want to bring up is the walking sticks. Now, this could be your thin aluminum, lightweight. You can buy at any store, or you can buy at good brands. Or one of my favorite things, a wooden stick I cut. And I tend to cut my wooden sticks long. Like,
mine generally are about the same height as me.
Yeah.
Maybe a little less, but over shoulders.
Between your chin and your forehead height. Like,
yeah.
When you're walking, it's close to your height. And this gives you a lot of ability. Like you can use it to test soil, test rocks. You can use it to help leap over higher objects, or when you're stepping on unsteady stuff, you can ground it and give you that third leg essentially to prevent you from falling. And when you're climbing, you can use it to push against the ground. And so it's not just your legs. So one or two walking sticks can be used to greatly increase your stability, your confidence, and your ability to transverse terrain without putting as much physical effort into it. You can control your descent as well as your ascent. So if with river crossings or things like that, it's really good. Now, the downside, and I want to talk about this a little bit, this is why I like my stick, is if you're in tight terrain, so areas of trees, brush, things like that, there's a lot of things on the walking sticks that can get pulled off. The little baskets, there's rubber tips that you can put on them, or interchangeable tips, and even like the loops to help hold it to your hands. These things get tangled up in the bush. The next thing you know, you've either lost part of it, all of it, or you've actually gotten it stuck in something and you've bent and broken it. Where a wooden stick tends to never get stuck or rarely get stuck, and good luck breaking it. And if you did, you could cut the wrong stick and you'll cut a new one.
I was going to say, oh, well, new firewood. Guess I'll find a new stick tomorrow. And there is something to making a walking stick when you get out on the trail. It's kind of a fun little thing. As one of the first things you do just going into the woods, find yourself a good walking stick. I do have one here that I absolutely love. More often than not, every adventure I go out on, I just grab a new walking stick. I very rarely bring this one. This one has almost become exclusively my walking stick for trails, which is weird. But if I'm going in the woods, part of the thing is, hey, this is where I'm going in. I'm going to take my bearings. I'm going to take a look around, see where I'm at. While I'm doing all this, taking a breath and evaluating the terrain I'm about to go through, I'm looking for a good stick. Yes. And I think there's a joke here about men and sticks, about how we never really grow up out of it. And it's true because they keep serving purpose even as we become adults.
It's a good stick, buddy.
It's a good stick.
But I know women who love sticks too, so don't get me wrong. It's something that there's a childhood delight of finding a really cool stick that fits your hand well, that has the heft you want, not too heavy, not too light, and allows you to do things. Like it does have a bit of a magic feeling to it.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why mine is what it is. Like it was, and I think I've said this before, I pulled it out of beaver dam and it was just like the second it fell in my hand, I was like, this is it. This is the stick. I've had this thing for 16 years. So,
I mean, a stick is so useful. I mean, like I said, it helps you with stability. It can help push you around. You can use it to test things. It's also a defense thing. If something is maybe a problem, if you want to test different objects, and you can also use it to move things and stuff like that. Like a stick becomes very multi-purpose in the woods. The other thing I can't say enough good stuff for is a solid pair of boots or outdoor footwear. And I say that because some people will say I'd rather like trail runners than heavy boots. Now I do love my big boots. I love my ankle support net, but if you're going through rough terrain, do realize like the ability to injure your feet is almost 10 or 15 times more likely. Like some of the terrain you're walking through can easily scuff up your ankles, cause you to twist things. So having that degree of protection really helps. So I do like a good high boot with some nice lacing on it and a decent set of treads, and also has the flexibility that I can move my foot around and maintain that stability I'm looking for. So a good pair of boots, hard to find. Once you find a pair, like it is an invaluable tool. And the other thing that is when you're traveling rough terrain, you use your hands as much as your feet. A decent pair of well-fitting gloves, and I say that really importantly. It can't be just like a pair of garden gloves. I mean, it can in a pinch, but a pair of properly fitting, say leather, ideally gloves, is going to allow you to help climb rocks, use maneuver around rope and stuff. Are you looking at something?
just a lot of vibration coming through the house, which means there's either a plow outside or something else. I'm listening for sirens. That's all.
So yeah, so a good pair of gloves, especially around terrain with the brush and stuff. Also, you got thorns and needles and things like that. The ability to move brush and stuff away, sharp rocks, and climbing things gives you good grip, but protects your hands because your hands inevitably start becoming part of your motion. Your locomotion is enhanced by your hands and a good pair of gloves. They don't have to be on you at all points of time, but probably keep them in a pocket or hung to your belt so you can quickly get them when you need them.
No, 100%. Just before we go too far down the lane here, I did want to come back to boots. Something that's worth keeping in mind for boots is steel toes. There is times where it is going to work to your advantage. There is times when it is going to work against you. So a lot of steep climbing and stuff like that, where you're going to be walking on your toes and going up or down descents, steel toes can work against you. And a real world example of this. Natural Resources here in Nova Scotia, one of the mandatory pieces of safety gear is steel toe boots. That way when you're out in the woods, if something falls on your toes, no big deal. However, if we get deployed, well, not we, I'm no longer with Natural Resources, but at the time, if we got deployed out west, can't have steel toe boots. Out in Ben's neck of the woods, it's a lot more hilly and rocky and stuff like that. It's a lot more traversing up and down. If you have steel toe boots, because your toes are always kind of pitched back, that steel plate or cap generally jabs into the top of your toes and the top of your foot and creates chafe spots. I'm a big advocate for steel toes. Like my hiking boots are generally steel-toed boots, unless I know I'm doing a lot of up and down climbing, in which case I will go and find basically a disposable pair of boots because one, I'm pretty heavy and I know I'm going to destroy these things, which is why I like steel toes. For that, simply because I have had long enough hikes where the steel cap or it's not always steel, it's composite, so don't just go with steel. Any kind of hard-toed boot. That cap can displace inside, and it'll actually start jamming in the top of your toes, and I actually had to remove the toe caps off a pair of boots so I could get out, which was a real funky feeling.
Yeah, and here's something too. Make sure your boots fit properly. I have recently realized that for whatever reason, the size of boots I've always been wearing no longer seem to fit well. And so I'm actually finding it's hurting my little toe, and I've had to go up a couple of sizes to comfortably wear. So the boots I was able to use for the first half of my life, I can no longer use in this half so far. So make sure they fit and fit well, because if a boot doesn't fit well, it's going to hurt. It's going to cause potential damage or at least injury. and you're not going to enjoy it as well. So a good fit really matters. Like you, especially on the East Coast, I often wear steel toes. But if you think about it, the military, and the military is a good source of research for this stuff, their combat boots are rarely, if ever, steel toe. Their parade boots oftentimes are steel toe. So it's not that the military has a problem with steel toe, but they don't require it in combat situations where you're running through weird terrain and stuff. But they do give you solid footing, usually made of leather, something that can breathe, get wet, and dry out. So take care of it. Whatever you have, there is going to be some stuff to keep in mind. Gore-Tex is really popular these days, but one thing somebody told me with Gore-Tex is if Gore-Tex gets wet, Gore-Tex does not dry very well. And so if water gets into your Gore-Tex boots, unless you can leave them off for a couple of days and let the air circulate and dry them out, they will stay wet for the duration of your trip. So breathable, quick drying, with enough support that doesn't restrict your motion. You're talking a very personal choice for that. Like where you find a boot that works with you may not work well for others, and vice versa. So definitely research that. So that was boots,
Gloves,
walking sticks, and gloves so far.
Yep. So just looking at my notes from you and I checking here before, if you do got these up and down terrains, something that's worth thinking about, GPS and stuff like that, they could stop working depending on how deep the valleys are. And if you're getting into the like glacier cut valleys and stuff like that, there's always potential for hot iron content. And I have run into that here in Nova Scotia as well as other provinces where a compass never really truly seems to point where you want it to. Like you'll take a bearing and okay, you're going this way. You'll walk like you're 100 feet to your landmark, pull your compass up and realize you're going in the complete opposite direction you thought you were. So these are things to be aware of. You can compensate for them. They're not, holy crap situations. They are things that you can compensate for as long as you expect them. So it's worth being aware. So something I used to start doing is anytime I get around where I'm like, hey, you know what? I don't know if this is what this really is. I start checking my bearings more often. And if I can find a good open spot, I'll walk a little bit with the compass in my hand and just kind of watch the needle. Does it stay generally in the same direction? Or is it kind of bouncing around? If you see it bouncing around even, like 10 degrees over 10 kilometers is a long way off. You know what I mean?
It's probably 10 degrees at 10 kilometers. It's probably close to a kilometer off, honestly.
That's what I mean. It's a long way off. But it's still something that you can easily compensate for, providing that you're aware it's a problem. And that's the thing. It's just one of those things you have to take into account. And there are big geological pockets where we have a lot of, like, iron. There's other metals that you could, if you potentially got around a few other heavy metal deposits that emit magnetic fields, it could be problems too. Just here in Nova Scotia, iron tends to be the biggest one. We'll get a lot of like the old slag iron in between rocks and stuff like that. And it'll be just enough to screw you up. You won't get the Hollywood, this dial spinning in circles or anything like that, but it will be off ever so slightly. And you will, I don't know how to describe it, but it's off. You just feel something is wrong. And maybe that comes with experience. Maybe you can give some insight on that one, Ben.
We came across it. I haven't experienced it too much, but yeah. Usually it doesn't last for a long time, though. It's a pocket where it's going to deflect you off for a bit, and once you walk 10 to 100 feet away from that, you'll start to see it'll come back. But those little deviations, especially if you're taking a sight line from that, you could end up off for quite a ways because your sight line is quite a ways down, so you start walking to that line distance. So if you do, keep checking to see if that direction still stays valid. It can get knocked off a little bit. There's a couple other things I wanted to bring up. And that's, yes, navigation is huge, and that's a whole conversation. But just transversing to the terrain, rope, and I definitely don't mean paracord. I know a lot of people are going to get upset over this. Paracord has a place. Don't get me wrong, but paracord has a lot of stretch, and it's pretty small. So when you grab it, it's going to more or less burn and cut. But if you can get a decent climbing rope or a thicker, soft rope, and carry, you don't need a ton, but if you can carry some, especially if you're with a group, going downhill, and especially if you have to go back up a steep cliff or a steep climb, it's nice to have it. You can tie it to a tree or a rock, get a solid footing, and you can use that to help transverse your way down and get back up later. Just be willing to lose the rope because honestly, if you decide not to go back that route, it's still tied to the tree back there. There are knots you can tie that can be loosened by certain methods, but it's not for the beginner. And honestly, I wouldn't trust it for me. You know what I mean? But there are
No, those are
ways.
things that take a lot of practice and know-how. And it's not that you can't do it. And I encourage people to go out and practice that thing if that is your thing. But for the average person, might be a little much.
But there's places I used to swim, and the entrance to it was over extremely steep and hard to get area. And somebody went before me went and tied a couple of ropes in there, and we all used the ropes to get up and down from there ever since. So it's a really neat tool that you can carry and leave somewhere. So if you have a trail that's really difficult, you can tie a couple of ropes and locate and use that to help get up and down that worst spot. And especially if other people that can make it more difficult. If you're approaching a climb, you'll get your best guy to go up and then tie it off, and then everyone else can follow with the rope, and it makes it a little easier for them. And then, of course, return trips would the rope is already there. So hard to judge how much you'll need, but just a thought. Climbing rope is a good option, but there are plenty of other ropes out there. Something with some give, but not a lot, because like I said, paracord over probably 100 feet or 20 feet even. You can look at like 2 to 3 feet of stretch, which really matters on a climb, right?
If you want to get into the fancy terms, you're looking at static versus dynamic rope. But that's a talk for another day. While we're on the talk of terrain, something that's really prevalent here, and I'm sure it is across most of Canada, is not only the thick brush, but the blowdowns. We've talked about this in the past where you can be walking along and not even realize that you're 10 feet in the air because all you're doing is just trying to get across some of the brush. This is something to be heavily aware of, especially this time of year, because snow below you can give you false sense of where the ground actually is. I know in the past when I've gone out to do PGIs and there's still been snow in the woods, ultimately the PGIs don't get done because there's snow in the woods, but you'll be walking on a tree and be like, oh, the snow is only 2 or 3 feet below me, but then take your stick and all of a sudden it disappears into that snow below you because there's a cavity or something there. And you got to be very careful about slipping into that, especially if you are on your own, because it might be a soft landing on the way down, but you may not have a viable way of getting out.
Again, spot where a stick can really help.
Absolutely, and that's what my magic stick is there and why it's so long. A couple of times I have slipped and fallen and used it to brace and catch myself and be able to get out of a hole, or if something's just a little higher above you, you can put above that on and kind of use it as that extra support to pull yourself up. There's definitely things that you can do to make it better, but ideally just don't get into the situation in the first place. And that's just pay attention to the ground. And once again, if you got that stick, just start sounding off. Like as you go a few steps and you're like, you know what, I'm above the ground. I'm going to walk across this tree because there's a better path over there. Just as you're going along, use the stick to kind of keep you balanced. And then every now and then just poke it down and see how far up you really are. Because it is very easy to get really high and not even realize it.
You can definitely always test the ground with your stick because usually you got a base that's only an inch or so. So if the ground is soft, you can push it in. If you're traveling across just trees and stuff, and you can just push and see is there actual ground beneath it, or am I walking on it? The other item here that's probably always useful is a good saw or axe that you can remove a bit of brush that's blocking your way, because sometimes sharp branches and stuff can cause a lot of problems. Like it can poke you in places that are uncomfortable or even vital. So being able to remove a few branches out of your way is oftentimes useful, and also to prevent anything from falling on you as you start to maneuver around it. You may want to cut a path. So I often carry a small saw or axe with me when I'm doing more difficult terrain, especially considering by the time I get where I'm going, I'll probably need a fire anyway. So this would help me better with that. So I know ultralight guys will say it's too much weight, but
I mean, ultralight for me is still 50-pound pack. We've talked about this in the past. Well, we are talking about moving around and getting scratched and stuff like that. Like you said at the start, keep an eye on what you are wearing. You're not only dressing for the weather, dressing for the terrain. If you're going to be going through tight brush, you may not want that great big puffy coat because you're going to be doing a lot of huffing, but you probably still want some sort of long sleeve shirt to keep you from getting all scratched up. Definitely dress in layers, as we always talked about and everybody else talks about. That way you can kind of add and take away as you need. And this is the time of year where you may want to bring spare clothes specifically for when you get to camp, because once again, you're going to have that snow falling off the trees, you're going to sweat a little bit, you're going to get some moisture from the ground, you're going to get there, you're going to be damp. It's nice to jump into some dry clothes and settle in for the night than try and fight off that chill all night from being damp all day.
Yeah, so clothes is always the thing, and we've talked about clothes before. There are other episodes, and we'll probably talk again. Same idea though. Difficult terrain, you tend to get wet. Make sure it's quick dry material. One of the problems with jeans, and I love jeans for difficult terrain because it's usually more protective, is if it gets wet, it gets heavy, and it also can start causing a lot more chafing issues, and that can leave you in a really bad situation. So you're looking for something that dries quick, but offers some protection from those rough branches, anything with thorns, or anything that might potentially cause some damage to you. So sturdy clothing is really important, but clothing that can handle the type of terrain you're going through is important to not add to the obstacles. So if you can keep those things in mind, I think you've got a really good start on how to deal with difficult terrain. Even with all this in mind, know that what you can do in easy terrain, say 20 kilometers a day is easy and easy terrain, you might only get 1 or 2 kilometers in heavy, dark, dense terrain.
I was going to say, we've talked about this in the past, at least you and I between us, on the show we used, well, probably still watch, Alone. When they did the pairs thing there, they were traversing like, 1-2 kilometers over a 10-12 hour day. Because it's just difficult terrain.
And that's here. But that's steep climb, navigating, plus carrying a lot of their load with them, left them in a position where that's about all they could safely do. So it is something to keep in mind. If you're hitting heavier, harder terrain, you are going to go slower, and you're going to have to be more careful. And if you push yourself, you can easily get injured, and it's going to be really difficult to get out of there. Oftentimes you can get injured in spots where we can't get life flight out to you. You can't get a helicopter. They may have to basket you out if they can, or they may have to carry you away to where they can. And it will even take rescuers probably as much time or more than it took you to get there for them to get there to help you. So if you took 3-4 hours to get in through heavy terrain, think there's probably going to be 6-7 hours before search and rescue shows up, or any other rescue people. So taking that time to do it correctly and protect yourself is of vital importance.
100%. And I guess my final thoughts for tonight's episode, because we're batting up against 30 minutes here, is the common things. Especially this time of year, people have been resting a little bit more, maybe out of shape a little bit. Plan for more breaks. Plan to drink more water. Plan to be slower than you were when you stopped going out last year. We're all guilty for it. This is heart attack season for some of us that are getting up in age and some of us that aren't, because it's more realistic nowadays. Is don't push so hard until you get used to it. If you know you're going to be doing some difficult stuff, maybe start doing a little conditioning, getting out and walking, build your stamina up, just get the muscles moving again. Just because you can still do it up here doesn't necessarily mean that the rest of the body's going to follow suit as easily as you would like it to. It's definitely still good to get out there, have fun, get dirty, have your adventures and stuff like that. Just bring yourself back to realism for where you are, for who you are this time of year.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it's, if you're thinking of doing it, just grab a pack and start walking good trails. Just get used to the weight again, get used to carrying the stick, get used to all that. And then do some small things and work your way up. Especially if you're new at it. If you're a seasoned pro, judge yourself accordingly.
100%. And I think that's a good spot to end her up here tonight. Unfortunately, both Ben and I have other prior commitments that we got to get to. But I mean, that's still our 30 minutes. And I think we covered everything we wanted to without repeating too much. So a kind of efficient podcast here tonight. If nothing else, hopefully it gets people thinking just for this time of year before they head out, just to take that one breath and go, hey, you know what? Maybe I should whatever. And that's all this was ever for. So once again, folks, get out there, have fun, be safe, know where you're going, do your research, do a little bit of training if necessary. I know that's where I'm falling into now because it's been a hell of a winter. But yeah, as always, stop in, give us your stories. We love to hear them. Every now and then somebody does drop in and give us a little story, and it's absolutely delightful. So until next time, see you, folks.
See y'all.